Another trap that we see a lot of student athletes fall into is labels. And Matt, do you want to talk a little about kind of the labels that we see?
I would love to. I would say the majority of things that I discuss, whether it's on the phones with families or hear from our folks here, are just those very labels. The problem with these labels, which we'll give you a couple of examples of, is they really close you off to the majority of schools, specifically a lot of those high academic schools that you may not know too much about. And so, for example, right, it's, I want to go to an Ivy League school. It's I think that's a nice thing to say. But Ivy League schools from one another are very, very different from where they are, from Dartmouth to Harvard to Brown to Yale, those types of schools. They're very, very different from each other, from some of the things that they're going to offer in terms of their major, and certainly their geography and their size. So I think being able to say, I like this school because, and then being able to use some of those characteristics to then place it at Ivy League school are fantastic, because that's a very good, good opportunity to be able to do that. The second one, which I actually think is the biggest one, is I want to play Division I. That's point blank. That's it. Again, what we've talked about here is less than 1/3 of NCAA schools are Division I, and even less than that are some of the higher academic schools that we've talked about. We need to kind of get rid of the it's D1 or bust, stigma. It's let's find the best fit for us, that the major is right. I keep kind of bringing it up, but I think that's important. But then other things, right? Like you talk about, what's the social kind of situation like? What is the deal with clubs on campus? Do they offer, a really good, like I know GW, for example, their intern program was amazing. And in the summertime, being able to do that day in and day out and have a real job was important. If you're going to play in a specific school and kind of a division, you need to find out what their summer schedules are like. So I think that's what's really, really important, is to cut through some of these labels and make it what's right for you. So then, I think that overall, assessing the schools with your list of qualities, the ones that you've kind of mentioned and given some tips on, is going to really help determine your college experience, and more importantly, where you're going to go to study what you actually want to go study. So the way that we define the win in the recruiting process is probably very different than a lot of other folks, camps, however you want to say it. We honestly feel that, and I said this before, that using softball as that vehicle to help gain admission to a school with a very low acceptance rate, that's the win. Because you're not just looking at the next 4 years, you are looking, and again, tough for a 16, 15, 17-year-old to think about, you're looking at the next 60 years. How is this going to shape me? Where am I going to live? What am I going to study? Who am I going to meet when it comes to that? And then the last part is keep an open mind. You said it earlier, we have to say it again, because in this recruiting process, what you're going to find, especially with the higher academic schools, is there's going to be schools out there that you don't know too much about. You didn't even know maybe that they existed, but you met them at an event, you went to their camp, more importantly, you met them at our camp, which we'll talk about, and you were able to have a great conversation with a coach from a school in Minnesota, and you didn't think in a million years that's where you'd be going, but you realize that it's the perfect size school. They offer what you want to study. They have an amazing softball program where maybe you can go and play there your freshman year, which is also important. All these things connect. You go to campus, fall in love, and next thing you know, you'll be heading there. And at Headfirst, the amount of times I have heard that from folks that are now have just been accepted, or applied early or applied regular decision, and they're going to be going there in the fall, is amazing. And we'll get to some of those stats later, but keep that open mind, because you never know what doors are going to open up for you.
Absolutely. And I think that when people ask me, Max, what's your favorite part about honor roll camps, it's the idea that it's also a discovery platform for these schools. You might go into camp, and this would have been me as a student athlete. You go into camp thinking about the Northeast schools that you have heard of. You might have, Bates, Bowdoin, Colby, Amherst, Williams on your list. Great. Then all of a sudden, you meet a coach from Grinnell, Iowa, and you had never heard, you couldn't have put Iowa on a map. You had no idea where Grinnell was. You never heard of the school. But as you match it up against this, as you're assessing through this list of qualities, it fits so many of the qualities, and it's able to really compound your opportunities, because you are looking not just at X or Y list of schools or X or Y label, but this list of qualities that you're assessing these schools through, and that's the lens that you're using.
And it's tough to do. It's really, really tough to do. So that's why we're here. I'm on my hope.